Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Adam Steele for the Hot Pole Studios if you haven't seen me before. Today's video is going to be a short excerpt from an interview with Ken Weller from Celestion Speakers. If you don't know Celestion, they provide guitar speakers for pretty much most of the famous guitar amp brands. You'll have heard them, you cannot escape Celestion, they are everywhere. The makers of the Vintage 30, which is one of the most famous rock and roll speakers, the Greenback, which is another one famous, like AC/DC all the way through to, modern big names use Greenbacks. The Alnico Blue, which is one that Brian May uses in his Vox AC30s, which is still one of the kind of classic go-tos. So they're really building a future for themselves with other avenues. So without further ado, here's an excerpt from the interview that we did for our upcoming documentary about British audio with Ken Weller from Celestion. Enjoy. Tell me a bit about the history of Celestion from the start to about the 60s. Just a broad brushstrokes.
Okay. It was started in 1924 by a chap called Cyril French and his brother and a couple of other guys, developing a loudspeaker which turned into a patentable device, which was a paper cone stressed and kept in shape with pieces of bamboo. And it's actually a pattern that you see on a lot of old Celestion boxes actually, still today. So the factory was actually based in Hampton Wick, and obviously grew as time went on and moved to Thames Ditton, and somewhere along the line there got interrupted by World War II, and both Celestion and a fellow company that was down the road, which was Roller, were then employed making a very specific loudspeaker device for the government for the war effort. And ultimately, when the war ended, there was a Great Depression, and the two companies joined forces. In fact, Roller bought Celestion. So this was some time before we actually started making guitar speakers. So I know people like to talk about pre-Roller Celestion sometimes when they talk about greenbacks and things, but actually no such thing exists really in terms of guitar, but it's more to do with the labelling of the products.
Well, fair enough. So we got up to the 60s there. So let's talk about kind of the late 60s a little bit, with the whole like Marshall, Jimi Hendrix, Pete Townsend, big Marshall stacks, all using Celestion speakers, of course. So up until that point, would you say that there were plenty of competing speaker companies for reputation?
There were a number of different companies, but the guitar market as a real thing for a loudspeaker company to market to didn't really probably exist again. So it was something that Vox had picked up, and obviously Jim Marshall came along in the mid-60s, and we gave him the Greenback, and 4x12s and lots of noise from Jimi Hendrix and various other people, and Angus Young and people all ensued. So and we still have a hugely close relationship with Marshall and Vox, and obviously all the various other UK and worldwide speaker brands, guitar brands that are out there, amplifier brands. So the Greenback, as we originally know it, was the G12 M. So the M referred to the magnet size. So the M was medium magnet, and later on we had the H, which was the heavy magnet. And obviously we did a couple of different variations of those things with 75 hertz resonance cone or 55 hertz resonance cone. So there were various other things going on, various other different products happening, but it just kind of carried on really without huge amounts of activity, if you like, or other than sales. Whereas the hi-fi thing took off big time, and there was huge amounts of new products, lots of research actually, lots of things like laser interferometry was developed during that time, which had a huge effect on the quality of the drivers that we used in the hi-fi products. And then as time marched on, we got to the 80s, and obviously Celestion had still been making PA drivers and general purpose drivers, if you like, but we started concentrating more on big PA systems. So the sort of things that you see other companies now making, like Mackie and Martin Audio and a whole load of different companies. And that continued through the 80s and into the 90s.
So, as well as speakers, you're now selling something else, aren't you? The impulse responses.
Yeah, so we'd seen a lot of people in the world selling impulse responses of different drivers and our drivers. And we listened to some and we thought, yeah, not so impressed with that. But they were selling them essentially with our name attached to them. So we kind of felt we were forced to do something, if you like, because our name was essentially being damaged, our brand name, by products out there representing our guitar loudspeakers, which didn't sound like our guitar loudspeakers. So we spent a lot of time researching how to do it the very best we could and use the very best equipment we could and the very best facilities we could to get the very most accurate recording that we could of the impulse responses. And we used a number of different techniques and methods that I can't go into because they are bespoke and they are how we've got the things to be as good as they are to get those things. And we think we've done it really well. And the market response, we launched them in NAMM earlier this year, and the response has been really positive. Everyone has come back and said that actually, yeah, these sound like they should sound, and which has been a really positive thing for us.
Having just visited, I now know that you have a lab where you're constantly working.
So we've in so the R&D section here is we reckon we've got more R&D engineers working on loudspeaker drivers than any other loudspeaker driver company. And we're constantly developing drivers for us, which we put in our standard catalogue, if you like, both guitar and PA drivers, and also for customers. So OEM customers come to us and say, we're designing this new thing, can you make 5,000 pieces a year of this? We like the one that's in your standard catalogue, but actually, can you just change this little aspect of it? Or can you just change the cue? Or can you just change the... So we do that all the time. And the lab in there, if I was to take you in, normally they clear it up when there's visitors come around, but actually at the minute it's just piles and piles of drivers of all sorts of different types. And that's actually its real working environment. That's what it normally looks like, because we're just rushed off our feet making samples for all sorts of different people, for all sorts of different drivers, manufacturers all around the world. And we continue to push the limits with things like compression drivers. You know, we're talking about guitar loudspeakers and PA loudspeakers, but compression drivers is almost a world in its own. And again, the barrier to entry for compression drivers is much, much higher than it is for normal woofers. All the tolerances are that much tighter, and it's that much more difficult to make them properly. But we're now making something like about 1,000 a day of compression drivers we make and ship out there. We don't know where they all go, but somehow they seem to all go into PA speakers out there, and we continue to do really well with that.
So the future's bright for Celestion.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ken, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hope you found this interesting. Hit that like button if you did, that's really appreciated. And please subscribe to the channel for more of this kind of stuff. And upcoming is that documentary, as I said, and we're planning to film more of these kind of interviews. I can't really say who with at the moment. There are potentials that I've already mentioned on the channel, but until it's absolutely confirmed in the can, I'll try and keep it under wraps just in case things don't happen. And we'll let you know as soon as we can. So keep your eyes peeled for more of that kind of stuff, and the tutorials and the gear reviews and everything that we're doing here at the Hot Pole. Thanks for watching. I'm Adam Steele for the Hot Pole Studios, and we'll catch you in the next video.